This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 138. On today's episode, we're going to discuss WWE having their own host of issues with COVID-19. And I use the word host because one of their hosts has it, and that crosses over to AEW, so possibly a title match in jeopardy. Also, what's going on with Sarah Logan, and we've got some official word as to whether or not Pac is done in AEW, and if Chris Jericho will ever go back to WWE. Of course, we're going to discuss the biggest topics and trends in wrestling, and there's a ton to hash into. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski, and doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He's my cousin. He's your cousin. He's everybody's cousin. He's Cousin Larry. He is the one, the only, the Doc, John Macaroon. What's going on, cuz?
This podcast might be one of the first wrestling podcasts where a lot of the issues we talk about and discuss revolve around things that happened outside of the ring. What a wild week in terms of wrestlers saying things a couple years ago they should never say. Like you said, COVID-19. Unbelievable week in professional wrestling. Really, I'm shocked because of the fact that usually we're in here high energy talking about a lot of things, the storylines and things we like and don't like. But this week, a lot of the tone is going to be about stuff that happened away from the ring, and it was pretty significant. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect setup and the perfect segue. You are a professional at what you do, and there's been a ton of big names that have been called out with this Speak Out movement that's been going on social media this past week. Names like Matt Riddle, Joey Ryan, Jimmy Havoc, Sammy Guevara, Marty Skrull, Jim Cornette, and even a guy like Dave Lagana have all had their names thrown out there in the Speak Out movement, which is basically women calling out men who have either sexually harassed them or had some type of sexual abuse against them. So I kind of want to know what your take is on these recent rehashings of these sexual assaults or harassment claims that took place in some cases many, many years ago, and in other cases as recently as a few months ago.
Absolutely no place in the world of professional wrestling or anywhere for that matter for that kind of stuff. And look, if all of these allegations turn out to be true, then there should be some serious ramifications for all wrestlers involved. And one specifically, we'll talk about Sammy Guevara. He faced a suspension. And in terms of what has to happen for a company definitely has to make sure that the men and women relate in a positive manner because they're traveling on the road together. They're spending significant hours together. And if a female performer doesn't feel comfortable in the work environment and there's a culture of discrimination or harassment, that's a huge problem in 2020. So this movement has to be taken seriously. And I think in this day and age, if you're a male performer and you're still acting like a Neanderthal to a woman in the workplace, that's absolutely disgusting, and it can't happen. And what should happen should be swift. Every allegation should be investigated start to finish. And then once the results of that allegation come to fruition, if something did indeed happen, then that performer's got to be let go in order to provide a safe work environment for all men and women. So all these allegations need to be taken seriously, investigated. The one thing I just don't want to have happen is where an allegation comes and then a performer is automatically dismissed or suspended. What has to happen is an investigation takes place, look at all the facts involved, take your time with each thing that's looked at, come away with a report, and then based on the report that you get from the professionals involved, then you make the determination as to what you do forward. But these performers might just need, similar to Sammy Guevara, just a couple weeks of sensitivity training so that this kind of thing never happens. It's 2020, bro. You can't be disrespecting women like that in the workplace or any place for that matter, especially with the public nature of how everything is going on. You can't rib the same way. You can't act the same way. You have to be more professional in all manners, in all facets of your career. And if you don't know how to get down and conduct yourself with a woman in the room, and when you're outside of the company and how you represent yourself, then you have no place to be in such a public forum in such a big way, because professional wrestling puts you on the pedestal of a role model. And if you can't conduct yourself in that manner, then you don't need to be given any airtime. You need to be dismissed.
I agree with you 110%. I do want to walk this line gingerly, though. I do want to be sensitive here, because what these allegations are and who they stem against are very, very serious in nature. The thing that I have a little bit of trouble with is some of these things that were, as far as the harassment goes, the sexual assaults, there's absolutely no place for that. But as far as the harassment claims go, some of these guys were much, much younger and much, much dumber. And I know in my own, I can only put myself in my shoes, and I can only really walk in my shoes, and then I can kind of project myself to where these guys were. When I was younger, I said a lot of stupid things. I said a lot of very derogatory things. I said something similar to what Sammy Guevara said before. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying I would do it today, because I wouldn't. But when I was younger and dumber, I didn't think. And I think the way Sammy Guevara conducted himself with everything that has happened. So Sammy Guevara at one point said that he wanted to rape Sasha Banks. This all came out, and AEW suspended him. His salary is now going towards a fund that helps support battered women in Jacksonville. And Sammy Guevara took the steps to reach out to Sasha Banks, to have a conversation with her, to discuss what was said and what happened, and apologize to her. And I can only applaud Sammy Guevara for taking those steps and being a bigger man today than he was when he used the words that he used. Now, a guy like Joey Ryan, as of, I want to say Wednesday, his count for sexual harassment and sexual assaults was up to 17 and growing. And it doesn't seem like that is uncommon for a guy like Joey Ryan. Where this really hit home for me was with a guy that I'm a massive, massive fan of, and that is the villain Marty Skrull. Marty Skrull, it was alleged that he had received oral sex from a drunk 16-year-old while in the UK working for a promotion. That promotion's owner and promoter ended up raping this girl later on after she ended up getting oral sex from Marty Skrull. And Marty Skrull was going to have sex with her until her friend came in and basically chased him away. At the time, Marty Skrull was 26. There's no reason for a 26-year-old man to be messing around with a 16-year-old girl. So these allegations are extremely serious. I can only applaud a guy like Sammy Guevara, who has come out, basically owned up to making a mistake years ago and saying, I messed up, my bad, and then reach out to who he harmed and address the situation with that person and smooth that over as best as you can. So I can really and truly only applaud him. I am disgusted in Joey Ryan, but not surprised. Jimmy Havoc is his own little bit of a head case, as he's a gaslighter and is kind of deplorable with some of the things he's done and said. Jim Cornette's got thrown into this, and I'm not 100% sure what's happened there. And Dave Lagana's story is kind of murky. We'll say it best that way. It's just, you're right. These allegations need to be taken seriously. Sometimes younger men make stupid mistakes and do dumb things. There is no place in this business for grown men acting like children and saying stupid, insensitive things and doing harmful, hurtful things, especially of a sexual nature, to other women or other men in the industry.
Absolutely. The right things happen in that the women are speaking up. So that's a great thing to hear. This will facilitate change much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. On Sunday's edition of The Last Ride, The Undertaker said that he had no desire, his words, I have no desire to wrestle again. Which got me to thinking, we have a ton of wrestlers. We see this all the time. We have a ton of wrestlers who always claim that they're retired, and then either the money dries up or the itch starts itching like it's never itched before, and they can't put any ointment on it to calm that itch. So next thing you know, you see a guy who's totally out of shape wrestling around the wrestling ring. Do we get one more match out of the dead man?
In a traditional ring, I don't think so. Could you see him do more cinematic type stuff? Absolutely, because it works. You can take your time with it. You can produce it in a way that makes him look good. But, bro, come on. If you watched that feature, the ending was so textbook. It was perfect. I mean, literally, he rides off as a badass on his motorcycle, having been victorious over AJ Styles. It was such a perfect way to end a career. Dude, you're 55 years old. You've been wrestling since 1990. Let it go. You've had a good career. You've had an amazing Hall of Fame career. No need to sully that. There's only maybe one cinematic match I want to see, and that's against Sting. Other than that, I don't need to see The Undertaker in the ring anymore. I love the fact now that he's done the media tour. He's appeared on Sam Roberts' podcast. He's appeared all over ESPN. He finally let go of the kayfabe, which he's been holding on to his entire career. Much respect. So to hear the background stories of everything involved, it's just different now. His career's done. He's 55. And if you watch that 5-part feature, the better part of the last 4 years, his matches have been by and large pretty brutal. Don't sully your reputation anymore. Walk off on a victory versus AJ Styles and make periodic appearances to get huge pops. Maybe he could be the first character back when the WWE returns back to live programming, and let him get the ovation that he deserves. But walk away, bro. Walk away. You don't need to be in the ring anymore. Never.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that I want to see him in the ring again, because much to what you said, don't ruin your reputation. He's been a stud, and he's been an absolute benchmark for the business forever and a day. So I don't necessarily want to see him in the ring one more time, but I do think we get at least one, maybe two more matches out of the guy. Sasha Banks challenging Asuka. See, I find this interesting. This happened on Monday Night Raw. Challenges Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. Now, I think this is a fascinating move because I think it raises more questions than it does answers about the brand split, because I think the brand split has basically crumbled. I think it's over. I don't think that you can have a red brand, a blue brand, and a yellow brand. I think at this point, WWE is moving in the direction where we are going to have wrestlers wrestling across the board, whether it be on a Monday night, a Wednesday night, or a Friday night, and then they will sometimes cross over with their matches on a pay-per-view taking place on a Sunday night. Does the brand split still exist in your mind? Because for me, it absolutely does not.
And finally, they recognize that it shouldn't. It makes for more intrigue, because then you know you got to tune in to NXT on a Wednesday, because you never know who's going to show up. I think it's a smart move, because what happens is it's one company, and whoever shows up on red, blue, NXT, look, we discussed, maybe having certain styles in different companies, but bottom line, there's so much good talent that if you got Sasha Banks and she's good and she's healthy, you want to utilize her in features, so you don't want to just put her on a Monday. You want to potentially put her on a Monday and a Wednesday, and then one week when it's a hot angle, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So to put it in a box in terms of a brand, look, WWE is a global product. The brand splits, in my mind, once they started, were never really as good. I mean, obviously you had some great stars like AJ Styles, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, build up companies, build up brands along the way. But for me, if you got AJ Styles, I'm down to see him on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, any day that ends in a Y. I want to see AJ Styles. So for me, I'm never really been fully invested in a brand split, but it's really cool to see this new fresh angle now with Sasha Banks going up against Asuka. We'll talk about Charlotte here probably shortly in regards to kind of her being written off television for a while. But for me, it's a fresh angle. I want to see it. Sasha, Asuka will be awesome, and whoever gets over will be well-deserved. It'll be great. So for me, the brand split, and probably even for the likes of Bruce Pritchard, makes his job easier to write along the way shows that flow together. So for me, I'm all for having great superstars show up wherever. It builds intrigue, and that's the direction the company needs to go in, obviously, because the ratings have sucked for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah, it's totally a ratings grab, and I think that's why they're doing it. But more to what you said, I think your head's in the right direction here, where you're like, you got great wrestlers, why not utilize them? My big fear is sometimes you've got such great wrestlers and they get put in spots where they will wrestle on a Monday, turn around on a Wednesday, and then have to wrestle on a Friday, and they just burn out and their bodies break down, because you can only handle so much bumping before your body just gives up and gives out. So because isn't that better than Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday? No, you're right. You're right. So getting away from the live shows, yes, you're absolutely right. But all that being said, I think the brand split is no longer. I don't think they can continue to do it, because in this COVID world that we're living in currently, you've got wrestlers like a guy like Kevin Owens who has walked out on WWE and says, I will not tape anymore, because WWE just had a whole rash of positive tests and he's in fear for his kids, is really what it comes down to. So I think now what WWE is working with is they're working with a shortened roster. So I think the brand split kind of goes out of the window, because you want to provide the best television you can. And the best way to do that is with some of your best wrestlers. And how best do you get all these wrestlers as they're spread out everywhere? you kind of bring them all together for these different shows. You're not doing live shows because nobody can attend anyways. So you're right. It is better to sit there and bump on a Monday, bump on a Wednesday, and bump on a Friday night. And then every, once a month, bump on a Sunday night. It actually does help save your body. And I'm sure these wrestlers are kind of loving this, even though they absolutely love doing the house shows, because the house shows, they get to try different things and do different stuff. But all that being said, as far as your body goes, I think WWE is forced in a position to get the most out of the bodies that they have on the roster and the best bodies they've got, and you need to cross them all over. Since we're talking about SmackDown right now, I want to know what you think about probably the main attraction on SmackDown, Bray Wyatt. Being able to tap into, and WWE allowing him to use 3 different versions of himself. You've got Firefly Funhouse Bray, who's probably the Mr. Rogers version. You've got The Fiend that we all love. And now it seems, in what took place this past Friday, that he gets to tap into his Eaters of World character. Do you like Bray Wyatt being able to bring in these different versions of himself and present them to the WWE Universe?
Absolutely. Harken back to Mick Foley, Dude Love, Cactus Jack. It's just nostalgia all over again. And there's only one performer in 2020 that can even consider trying this, and that's Bray Wyatt. So I'm all for it. It's amazing to see. You never know what you're going to get. Different characters can tap into different things, and it just provides something fresh, something unique. So Bray Wyatt, in any manifestation that he gets, has been unique and has just been really one of the performers that has kept that company afloat, where you go, wow, if you miss Bray Wyatt, you miss something. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And the fact that WWE trusts him enough to be able to give him free reign with his characters, I think is fantastic. The one thing WWE doesn't do enough is let their characters be their characters. And in this case, Bray Wyatt gets to be all of his characters. And out of everybody on that roster, a guy who probably needs to lean on his character and his character development the most is a guy like Bray Wyatt. And I think this is fantastic for him to be able to tap into all of this. Another character that's kind of getting dusted off, I guess, you had Edge, who went down with a tricep injury, come on Monday Night Raw and cut a very fiery promo. I want to know what you think about the return of the Rated R Superstar, because I love a little bit more of an edgy Edge, a guy who's a little bit more in your face. I've got to get a little bit more violent because you went a little bit too hard on me, and I've got to go to that next level. I liked this version of Edge. I loved his fiery promo.
I thought it was one of the highlights of Monday Night Raw. Absolutely. How can you not how can you diss an edgy version of the Rated R Superstar? So I felt like it was cutting edge. It was good. It cut into Randy Orton by saying, hey, this was billed as the greatest wrestling match, but you really didn't do all that much to live up to your end of the deal. So it was really cool to see. It got you in. It drew you in with that passion and everything. And so really, if Edge can perform at the level that he can in the ring, hell, if you can use him for promos or for some certain vignettes to kind of peek in and really focus on another of his strengths, I'm all for it, man. I'm even all for him in the next 9 months showing up in the announcer's table and tell us some stories or do a podcast or do something a little bit different to give us more insight into the mind that is Edge. And it was great. I think both you and I were like, wow, what a cool promo. It was great to see.
If anybody's out there listening, can you go back and count how many times we said Edge, edgy, or cutting edge, and let us know? Because that was a very Edge-centric topic right there for sure. So something that's a little bit cutting edge, maybe. Keith Lee, Adam Cole. They're going to compete in a winner-take-all match. And I want to pick your brain and find out why you think this is going to take place, because I've got my own reasons for this whole Keith Lee, Adam Cole, belt versus belt, champion versus championship match that's going to be taking place coming up here in NXT.
They're consolidating the North American Championship, eh? And probably, if you're asking me, Keith Lee should go over, and that harkens then, for me, and maybe we're on the same page, hopefully, is that we get to see Adam Cole, Bay on the bigger stage Monday and Friday, and let Keith Lee handle his business on Wednesday primarily. That's my thinking on it. That's what I thought. I mean, the North American title, I'll ask you, I don't think it has really that many great memories. I mean, yeah, there's been some great matches, but if you do away with the North American title, I'm okay with it. It hasn't lived up to the U.S. title or even the Intercontinental title. So in my mind, give the love and the shine to Keith Lee. Let Adam Cole have an amazing match. And then Bay Bay needs to go to the next level on the big stage, bro.
So I'm half in lockstep with you. I don't think they're doing away with the North American Championship. I don't think they're getting rid of that title. But what I do believe is it is now time for Adam Cole to get that call up. I think this is a big way to help put Keith Lee over. I mean, the guy is amazing. It's very rare that you ever find a 300 plus, almost 400 pound man who can do everything that this guy can do. And I think Adam Cole himself is so damn entertaining. I think he's going to get over when he gets called up to the main roster. And I think this might be the time. He's had the NXT championship now for what seems like ever. And this could be the moment that he gets the call up. And maybe we get Undisputed Era as a whole that gets the call up. And now you have a faction that runs roughshod on either the red or the blue brand. So it'll be interesting to see.
Blue brand. Give it to the blue brand.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be nice. No, I'm not sure if you took AEW, and I'm assuming you did. I thought it was a very good show. But something happened on AEW where I was like, I'm so damn excited for next week, and I'm so damn excited for the next 2 Wednesday nights with Fyter Fest, because you're going to get an 8-man tag match featuring FTR and the Young Bucks. We're going to be taking on the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade. And the reason I'm excited for this, because we had a fantastic match between Christopher Daniels and Kazarian versus FTR. And what you get with the Lucha Brothers and FTR are polar opposites of the types of wrestling that wrestlers can bring to a show. FTR is very much old school, ground and pound. We keep it on the mats. We're going to keep you in the corner. We're going to work you over in the corner. We're going to tag in and out multiple times. Nobody's getting tired. We're just going to beat you to oblivion. Whereas the Lucha Brothers are pops of excitement. It's, can we fly off the top ropes? If there's another something higher that we can get to and jump off, can we do it? Can we do different kicks? Can we do different flips? Can we do different in-your-face action? And I think what you're going to get is you're going to get to watch a very, very exciting match with 3 excellent tag teams. Butcher and the Blade, I think probably, and you would probably agree, out of all of these teams would probably be the 4th best or the one that you least want to see. But I think the action you're going to get between the Young Bucks and FTR versus the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade is going to be out of this world. And I think they're going to get a ton of time. I can see this match going 30 minutes, maybe 35, and you're going to be glued to your television and you're going to be on the edge of your seat the entire time. And it's just going to be different styles complementing each other.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm excited to see it. Tag team wrestling. This is what AEW has to hang their hat on, is that because of the fact that their women don't really compare to the depth of the WWE roster, but an edge that AEW clearly has, and potentially if they want to add Gallows and Anderson or a couple more international tag teams, they can establish that this is the place for tag team wrestling. This match gets me hyped. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what they're willing to try. They're innovators. So you could potentially have a match similar to tables, ladders, and chairs in terms of the shit that they try to do. So I'm excited to see it. I definitely want to see what FTR, Lucha Brothers, and everybody involved in this match. And look, I even forgot to say the Young Bucks. They're going to be wild and crazy. So this match is going to be unbelievable. And I just think that AEW has to deliver on this tag team match. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it either. Watching AEW's Dynamite on Wednesday, there was a moment where Matt Hardy came out, and he came out in his broken character, and I just had a moment watching it. I just want to kind of bring you into my life as I'm watching this unfold. And I had this moment watching Matt Hardy's entrance where he had Vanguard 1, but it's no longer Vanguard 1. It's like Electronic Organism number 1 now. So it just, he renamed it again. It was just something dumb. It's like, it's just stupid shit. It's all it is. It's just stupid shit. And it is so dumb, but whenever I see it, it makes me smile, and I love it. And I think this is what AEW does better than probably WWE. They give you fun moments. They give you light moments. They don't ever seem to take themselves too serious. And they play to the fan, and they play to the fan's expectation, and they give you what you want. I loved it. It was nothing important. It was just a moment. It was a brief 6-second spot in Matt Hardy's entrance, and it made me laugh out loud, and out loud I was like, that's some dumb shit, but I love it.
Exactly, and I thought of you when I saw it. I'm like, oh my God. And it's good, because this is what it should be. This is what a guy like Matt Hardy is intended to do now with his, when he has the opportunity to enhance his character and deliver deliver what he needs to. Hey, it's fun. Look, he's not going to be at the top of the card. He's never going to be maybe in a title contention situation, but he has the opportunity to bring some levity to the show and a point where you go, oh, Matt Hardy's coming up next. Okay, I got to see what he's going to do. What's he going to say? And you can draw life into that character a little bit more. And I think that Matt Hardy being in AEW is a good fit. And you're exactly right. It's a real fun moment in the show to see whatever craziness comes to his mind and he can actually deliver it.
Yeah, dude. It's so funny. He's so damn creative. He's good, man. He's so damn good. Something else that was really, really damn good. You got your whole Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho segment, and this is what closed the show. And by the end of it, Orange Cassidy was leaking a ton of blood out of the side of his ear. There was a moment where he was in the ring, and I thought for sure we were going to hear him speak for the very first time. And you didn't get that. And it kept me on the edge of my seat. And then them fighting all over Daily Place was exciting. This might be the match that tears down Fyter Fest. And it's not just Orange Cassidy and what he can do. The thing I probably took out of this segment that was probably the best was Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's ability to cut a great heel promo where he not only builds up his opponent, but at the same time takes backhanded shots at the crowd, the people watching on TV, and then attempts to tear down his recently built up opponent, all in the guise to get him irritated enough to then engage him in some type of fisticuffs. And Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy, I think, are polar opposites of each other. And this kind of goes back to that 8-man tag match where you're going to have different styles that complement each other. These are two guys who go about everything totally different, but it works. And I'm so interested in these two to duke it out at Fyter Fest these upcoming 2 weeks. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great match.
Absolutely. If you're a fan of professional wrestling, why would you not want to see Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho? A star is made already by Cassidy being in this angle, and that's just the power of Chris Jericho. I mean, literally, when he looked up and down that roster when he signed, you can put yourself in his shoes. He's like, oh, I want to work with that guy. I want to work with that guy. I can put that guy over. You know that Chris Jericho can enter into programs with different guys, and they can be fun. Even a nondescript quick month feud with Matt Hardy was interesting, and that's why a guy like Chris Jericho, when you sign him to a nice deal, that's what you do, is that just by being in a feud, we're now way more invested in Cassidy. Look, you said it yourself. He almost spoke, and we were all like, oh, we almost marked out. It didn't happen. The intrigue and the thing that's happening now across wrestling, and I think WWE is now responding to what AEW is doing, is the stuff can only happen when you tell a great story leading up to it. And it started heavily with the brothers angle with Cody and Dustin Rhodes in terms of telling stories. That's what leads to an amazing payoff. And now WWE has been forced to tell stories, obviously with Edge and Randy Orton. They're telling a story that potentially Edge not gotten hurt could have been told for a year. You could have had another WrestleMania match next year and we all would have been invested because it's a great story that you can take different places. And that's what Chris Jericho brings, is he can tell a story. He makes you care. And Cassidy's so fucking crazy that you're just like, wow, what's he going to do? By the fact that he acts so aloof and it's so unique and different that you know that there's a great wrestling match in there. And Cassidy doesn't even have to go over. Jericho can win this match and Cassidy is going to probably come away looking amazing. I think probably the best thing should happen is that Cassidy wins the match, but whatever happens, I'm going to be glued to my computer when that match airs. I want to see what happens start to finish. And exactly right. It's exciting, man. It's cool stuff to see. And that angle on Dynamite made the show. I think that's what made the show better. Overall, I thought NXT and AEW were pretty close. Cassidy Jericho just gave AEW the edge in my mind for the week.
I think you said something really, really intriguing when you were talking about this angle and you were talking about this future match that they're going to have in the next week or two. Orange Cassidy could come out of this match and he might be the bigger star when it's all said and done. And Chris Jericho's been doing this for years and he's been making guys and he's been breaking guys. And that is more, I think, a credit to what Chris Jericho does in the ring when he is able to. Orange Cassidy elevated himself. Orange Cassidy, and Chris Jericho said it perfectly. He's like, you got yourself over all by yourself doing your own stupid little gimmick. And Orange Cassidy did. But Chris Jericho has the ability to help push him to the very, very top. And when this is all said and done, Orange Cassidy might lose this match, but will probably come out the bigger star on the other end of it. And I think that is a kudos to Chris Jericho. That is a kudos to AEW and what they're able to do with their storytelling. And that is a kudos to Orange Cassidy for being himself or being his character. And I think it's fantastic.
Yes, sir. I can't wait. Fyter Fest. Can't wait to do the preview. Can't wait for the payoffs to some of these great stories being told by AEW. All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
I got a ton of it. So the latest rumors making their way through the wrestling world, Vince McMahon has completely soured on a wrestler who is going to get a major push. Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but Shayna Baszler might have been seen on a milk carton before she is seen on Raw or SmackDown, as Vince has given up on pushing her as a legitimate star, which is why she's barely appeared on TV in recent weeks. Now, all this seems to have happened around the time she was challenging Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship, and this is part of the reason why Becky had to just relinquish her belt to the winner of the Money in the Bank match, which eventually was Asuka. Earlier this week, it was reported that Charlotte Flair would be taking some time away from WWE and that she would be undergoing some form of surgery. At this time, it's unknown what that surgery is, and it isn't really clear when she'll be back, but her father, Ric Flair, revealed that maybe she'll be doing a new TV series. Speaking on the Wrestling Inc. podcast, Rick revealed Charlotte has been approached by a TV company with the intentions of having her star in some kind of series. There was talks about this back in 2019 that Charlotte was keen on making a reality show alongside her soon-to-be husband Andrade. They've recently been married. It's also believed that Charlotte would be back in time, in my words, to steal the spotlight at SummerSlam, because of course she would. So Charlotte may be out for a few months, but would be back probably by the end of August to be involved in some sort of SummerSlam angle. Zelina Vega would prefer to be a full-time wrestler. I don't know, do you remember that she used to wrestle? I kind of forgot, but she did. She used to be a full-time wrestler. On the New Day's podcast, she admitted that she never had any intentions of being a manager, but Triple H convinced her that it would be a good move for her career. Vega, while doing great work as a valet, says she still wants to have her time as a wrestler. Now, Chris Jericho, in a live segment, answered a fan's question on a possible return to WWE, saying, and quote, A, I can't. I'm still under contract for the next little while. B, I don't think I would be into doing a one-off. And for anybody, especially WWE, I want to be with AEW for a long, long time. So I hope that answers your question. So it appears no Y2J in the future, and someone else who's not going back to WWE anytime soon is Carl Anderson. He had the following to say on the matter in a tweet when somebody asked him if he was going to be going back to WWE. He said, absolutely effing not, except he spelled the F word. And as far as Pac and AEW are concerned, it appears Pac is done in AEW yet again. At a recent Dragon Gate event that took place in Nottingham, England, Pac said he wouldn't be coming to AEW after an impromptu match with his Double or Nothing opponent, Hangman Page. Now, according to Dave Meltzer, the official word from AEW is that there were different creative differences regarding the match, and Pac would be on Saturday's show with Pac's regular match in the UK. It's known that because he takes his status as world champ with Dragon Gate very seriously, he has not agreed to any losses since winning the Dragon Gate title, and to protect that, he has done 30-minute draws with guys like Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay. Now, on the flip side, AEW wants to present a sport-like atmosphere and had their own direction for what they wanted, and it would appear that it had nothing to do with a 30-minute draw. So basically, Pac is the Dragon Gate champion and has agreed to not drop that belt to anybody else who's going to take over the Dragon Gate belt. So any promotion he works for, he will not be losing, is essentially what the status is. Sarah Logan has announced that she is stepping away from wrestling. Remember, she was part of that Black Wednesday massacre where everybody got laid off from WWE. In the meantime, she has created her own YouTube channel that she started with her husband, Raymond Eric Rowe. It's called The Wild and Free TV, which centers around things like hunting, raising livestock, and the great outdoors. And to wrap up, WWE announcer, interviewer, and host Renee Young has confirmed that she has tested positive for COVID-19 this week, following the reports that several people in WWE have also done so. Around 24 positive tests have been rumored after WWE carried out their testing last week. Those who tested positive include staff, in-ring talent, and others. Now, what this means, you have to remember, Renee Young and Jon Moxley are husband and wife. Jon Moxley has a match coming up with Brian Cage at Fyter Fest, whether it's this upcoming week or whether it's the following week. Jon Moxley believes that he has COVID-19 right now. So if he has to quarantine, he might be able to push his match off to the last week of Fyter Fest, but this match is in serious jeopardy right now because of both of their health, because they're both dealing with COVID-19 symptoms. And that was part of the reason why Jon Moxley was not at AEW's Dynamite on Wednesday. And that's all I got for you for this week's wrestling news and notes, my friend.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure if you've agreed or disagreed with anything that you've heard on this week or any previous wrestling podcast, let us know what you think. Do you think that Matt Hardy should be elevated? Do you think that Chris Jericho should consider a return to WWE? Is Carl Anderson crazy for tweeting that out about a company that he could work for in 5 years? Let us know. Message us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Make sure wherever your favorite podcast is located, go hit 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you hit that subscribe button, our daily content, our coverage of the Michigan Wolverines, Detroit sports, wrestling, Adam and Brendan Riley are revisiting the Detroit Lions in the Throwback Podcast. Our daily amazing content will find you. Nothing extra you got to do. Just subscribe and the content will find you every single morning. And it's a great way to interact with the Detroit Sports Podcast. I always love talking wrestling and Detroit sports with you. Even though there's been a pandemic and we've been apart for the better part of a couple months, we've been able to record and break down wrestling. Even though this was a tougher podcast, it was done the right way. And I always enjoy talking to a fellow Mark. And there's no bigger Mark than Doc and Jock. Talk to tunes, cuz. We'll talk soon next week.
Be good, man. Be safe.